And we are live.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of SEO Fight Club. We've got a pretty cool episode today. We are going to be looking at how I make field observations where I actually go out into the Google results and kind of look at things to get a, state of the union, so to speak, for what Google's doing. And this all came about because everybody's up in arms about the BERT update. So we wanted to go into what we think that is and what impact it may or may not have on you. But first, how are you doing, Clint?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm fasting for a medical appointment, so I have no caffeine in me, and my head is pounding. But other than that, I'm good.
So you're completely miserable for the show. Awesome.
Exactly.
Extra grumpy Clint today. So go ahead, guys. Poke the bear. Kyle's not with us today. He's traveling to Bali. And he's going to Thailand after that. So we may not see Kyle for a few weeks. We'll see if we can adjust our timing in the future to get him on the show. Maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll let you know. Internet Marketing Gold, if you haven't heard, it's a group. It has a free side. Soon we'll have the paid side, but there will always be a very valuable and useful free side to this community. So you can get a free account and join the chat group and get access to the tools database, access to our published courses. We're going to be releasing a news tool. We have our scientific testing that's coming to the paid side. That should be out soon. A lot of big things are coming, and we're constantly working to make it better. We just surveyed all the users to find out what they want from it. So very cool community. Come join us, help us make it better, help us make it into the community you've always wanted. So it's really your community, but we need your help and involvement to make it better. And SEO this week, what can people expect?
This week we actually had a pretty decent conversation about BERT. It is the elephant in the room this week. And that was a good lead into today's show. So hopefully you caught that.
Awesome. Yeah, if you haven't checked out this show, please do. It's a huge time saver. Clint goes over all of the press for the week and boils it down to the 5 or 10 articles that matter most. It's a huge time saver. So go check that out. Also, I wanted to let you know that I'm doing a free webinar going over what my software is that I produce called Cora SEO software. This is an intro, so if you're already a Cora expert, you can probably skip it. But if you wonder what it is and what it can do for you and how to use it and what are the fundamentals of using the report, then this is the webinar for you. So you'd want to hop on it. It's Friday, November 1st at 11 a.m. And if you've never used Cora before, anyone who attends, I'm going to give you a redemption code for a couple weeks to kick the tires and try it out at no cost. There are only 100 spots available. And because there's that trial, it'll probably fill up. So if you're interested at all, I recommend you do it sooner than later because I can't squeeze you in after 100. It's not my limit. It's the GoToWebinar limit. So if you get in, you get in. If you wait too late, you'll just have to wait till next time.
That's just code to let you know that Ted's cheap and bought the cheap version.
Well, there's 2 modes at GoToWebinar. I'm a paid customer there. One mode is non-interactive, and you can have up to 3,000 people watching. Mm-hmm. But I always prefer to do the interactive, so I can take people's questions and answer and do that stuff too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I'm doing the interactive route. I'm BERT. A very talented SEO named Roman shared a link with me this morning. This is the URL for an academic paper from people at Google on what BERT is and exactly how it works and what it does and the data they use to train it. It's extremely technical. So a lot of people probably won't be able to make heads or tails of it. But if you really want to dive into the nuts and bolts of what this latest update is, this is straight from Google. So this is about as transparent as Google is ever going to be on anything. So if you want to get in there and dig in, go for it. The short of the BERT update is it appears to be there are parts of search, and one part is, evaluating the things you type into Google and trying to make sense of them. The other part of search is the system where Google crawls web pages and figures out what those pages are relevant for, and are they spam or are they quality. And so this is more evaluating what gets typed into Google than evaluating content. So this isn't, it doesn't appear to be a content evaluation thing. This appears to be an understanding your query update. And it makes sense to me that Google would want to do this. When you read this paper, it talks about figuring out if different worded questions are asking the same thing. Google would care about that kind of problem, because if they can say, oh, all these 15 different long tail questions are all asking the same thing, we can pull that result set out of cache, which is cheap and fast and cost effective. So it's kind of like a cost saving mechanism to better utilize cache for performance and fewer system resources on Google, web wide, which is massive. And so this is, kind of a cool thing. And when Google says you can't tune for it, well, and there's nothing you can do for it, maybe that's true. But oftentimes it often isn't. So if this update is affecting, what search results appear for a query, then maybe you need to target different terms to get in front of the traffic you need. And that's something as an SEO you can do to tune for it. You need to reevaluate where the traffic's going and what those terms are. So it might not be that there's something that you can tune for on your page, other than maybe, adding more pages to target more terms because the audience has moved as a result of BERT. So that's, my thoughts on that. We'll see in time how it actually pans out. And today I kind of wanted to take a step back from all this update business and kind of just look at what's happening in search and get a feel for, how it's kind of changed in the past year. Anything to add to that, Clint?
Nope. And no other questions from the audience.
Excellent. We've sufficiently lost them all. So the first thing I like to look at is, how do the variations change over time? And the variations are the words that Google makes bold in the search results. And so back in late September of 2018, for the search DUI lawyer Los Angeles, we got this one set, and then, just the other day, we get this new set. And so the green ones are the same on both lists. So the black ones are what are unique to each list. So you can kind of see how they differ. And the main thing that stood out for this keyword were the entities went away. The names of prominent DUI lawyers fell out of the match words. So that's not an increase of AI in Google. That's a piece of AI, the entity recognition, being removed from those search results. So I thought that was interesting. They still may be, relevance factors on page, but Google isn't highlighting them in the search results anymore. So I thought that was an interesting change, the removal of those entities. Have you seen changes in the variations?
I don't watch them as closely as you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was one change. I looked at the search term games, extremely high volume search term, extremely high competition too. And so back in 2018, there was only 2 variations. So now there's 5, and these repeating ones I think are interesting because I looked at them in the source and they're just repetition of the matchword. So now I want to go back and test repeating the keyword in different zones now that I see this appearing like that. So, a new thing to test. Is that a thing? I don't know. Might not be. But it is ranking. It is getting called out by Google.
It almost looks like keyword stuffing.
Well, it's there.
Yep.
Well, and there will be a theme. So continuing to look at it, I looked at the top websites. I looked at all the websites that were appearing in the results. And one of the things I noticed was the clustering of exact match and partial match domains near the top. So, that's still a thing. So that hasn't changed. And then also, this is what I call category exploit, where they're saying, oh, we're a website about games, and in our meta description, we will list all the types of games we offer so that we can say games a whole bunch of times. And so the maximum I've seen anywhere so far in the manual testing I've done is 8. So it seems like if you do 9, you get kicked out. But I haven't tested that, but I find it interesting that there's this limit of 8. Maybe that's a limit of, just the space. It's hard to get in 9 because there's not enough characters. So again, more testing, another cool thing to test. And in the keywords in the title text, 3 was the limit I could find this go around. So yet another thing we could test by looking at the field observations. So more keyword stuffing to your satisfaction.
For sure. I noticed that mini clip wasn't in the results there. You think there's other things at play there, or?
No, they're in there somewhere. They slip. Where are they? Here they are. They used to be 36. In the top 10. They slipped to 36. But I was looking for that limit in the search, and they were one of the top ones.
Yeah.
So let me go here. Okay. And so I looked at the number 1 result in Google because I was like, okay, how bad can it be? They're using the keyword 2,713 times in their source. And what's amazing is how they're getting the numbers so high. It's totally off of the fringe SEO category in the intermediate tunings. They have keywords and CSS class names, keywords and the link paths. They even have keywords and ID attributes. I mean, these are all the shenanigans of SEO for how they get it this high. So I'm quite impressed,
Is that an average across the? I don't know if you checked, but is that an average across the results, the top 10 results?
Well, this is number 1, so this is specifically the number 1 ranking one. Okay. There are examples that are even more egregious than this. But can you imagine if you're like, well, I'm trying to be an honest white hat SEO, so I only use my keyword 13 times on the page. And then just not realizing that you're playing a game of relevancy score that involves term frequency is the coefficient. I mean, you're just being outgunned on those types of algorithms. So it's not a judgment of quality. It's just that TF-IDF generally means whoever tends to say it more is more relevant. And that's what's being exploited here. So I looked at another keyword for the variations, New York SEO. And so back in 2018, it appeared that we had like these LSI hits that were appearing in the variations. And those are all gone now. So again, entities pulled out of the variations. It looks like they pulled LSI type things out of the variations. It's much closer to just like synonyms, plural possessive forms, things like that. Partial match, exact match. Another thing I like to do with field observations is I like to look at what the directories are doing, and especially Yelp, because they just perform so well across so many different keywords. And I noticed this one, which I thought was really clever. The name of their business is the target keyword. So they're basically using Yelp's authority to win a target keyword by naming their business the keyword. So if you're doing the strategy of how do I displace something or take more of page one, this is one thing you could do is start a business, put it in the major directories, name the business the keyword you want, and utilize their website's authority to dominate that keyword.
It's all fun and games until the maps Nazis report you.
Yeah, this I thought was crazy. And then we see that they're still using sentiment, and they're also pushing the number of matches in many cases. So here's a case of 7 matches in the meta description. Another thing I thought was interesting is they're surfacing search results to Google. They're feeding Google their search results. And that's what these two are, is we're seeing the searches going in there. And they're also letting Google crawl related searches from their website. And I would suspect, I haven't seen it, but I would suspect they probably have sitemaps somewhere with all the important search terms they want Google to crawl, and they're probably feeding them via sitemaps. So I thought that was really interesting that Yelp is feeding search results into Google search. That's typically considered a black hat practice, and I find that fascinating. Another thing I like to look at is the fold, what's above the fold, what's below the fold. So the yellow in this picture, these are the organic web results. Everything else is not organic web results. It's Google Merchant Center, ads, knowledge graph, local block. Here we have image search. People also ask, I think this is Google News. It looks like syndicated blog posts. And then more ads and related searches. And so I looked and counted what I considered the zones of consideration for the areas that you would be interested in potentially clicking on. And there were 42 zones, and 9 of them were organic web, or 20% of what Google is offering is basically organic web search. And this is really kind of the state. This is why your business model can't be only SEO. You need email, you need social, you need your pay-per-click and your shopping feeds. You need to consider local. You need to think about the knowledge panes and question and answer schema. And it's important because if you don't consider all of the other marketing channels, you're really leaving most of the opportunity on the table. So, any thoughts about the fold?
It's pretty disheartening to see it like that, but I think we've all known it was like that, but it's disheartening to see it graphically represented. I
Yeah.
would like to see a heat map test of this. That would be pretty cool. See where actual people are using. Are they leveraging all these fancy things that Google's shoving in there, or not? That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, if only Google allowed iframes, then we could actually heat map that.
Yeah,
They disallow iframes, so only Google could know it.
I know it'd be cool to be man crates though for that term.
Yeah.
The feature snippet is
Trademark.
huge.
Trademarks. I was actually surprised. This is one area where I think Google's doing a better job. I went and looked at people exploiting other people's trademarks and pay-per-click, and it seems to be reduced by quite a bit. So, if you've been competing with people just bidding on your trademarks, it's not perfect, not all cases, but it did look a lot better for a lot of the registered trademarks I checked. So this is an area where I think Google's doing a little bit better. And I was really surprised. I wasn't expecting that because I think that actually costs Google money. So when they find out they fixed this, they'll probably go and fix the glitch.
I don't know. I think that because it's really easy to do it. You just send them your trademark saying, "Hey, like Toyota, they were the first ones I ever found that actually did it, and they locked down any term with Toyota or the model names of their cars, and you can't advertise on there unless they give you permission." And there's a few other car dealerships that are, or models that are like that too. So I think that to me that would be like a natural thing for them to be able to do. If there's a trademark and you don't want people advertising on it, send a copy of your trademark to Google and get into that program.
Well,
So maybe
Google,
that's what they're encouraging to do to kind of counteract that whole, oh, there's people advertising on my business name. So
well,
unless you told Google that it's a trademark, then how the hell do they know? It's not their fault, it's your fault.
Well, Google used to have a form in the early days of Google where you could submit your trademarks, and then they discontinued honoring it. They shut it down. And so there's no way to tell Google your trademarks. And technically, Google could honor the trademark simply by just getting the trademark database periodically and enforcing it. So there is already that data provided by the government. And so my guess is they're probably doing a better job of trying to mitigate, that liability of infringing on trademarks.
Yeah, or
At least
trademarking
I hope.
words or names. Toyota, for example, that's a good name. It's I'm sure that's a tricky slope for them. It's kind of a pain in the ass. There's a guy who trademarked Portland SEO, for crying out loud, and any page that was ranking for Portland SEO, he sent them letters saying you can't use those words and inside of your content because that's my trademark. You're like, seriously? So I'm sure
Yeah,
Google puts up a lot with all that crap too.
a trademark like that should never be issued because it's an industry term of art and a location, neither of which should be allowed to be trademarked.
Yeah.
So my guess is it's probably an illegitimate trademark, or maybe just a scam. You might not even have a trademark. He's just
Oh
trying.
no, yeah, you got one. I looked it up. Yeah, I looked it up when I heard about him. And there's a lot of people or who've done that. Not particularly just in the SEO agency, SEO world space, but taking common phrases and trademarking them,
Yeah,
and then
it's
going after people. So
supposed to be not permitted. And the defense to that is finding prior art, things that are utilizing the term in the public domain prior to the trademark date. And, that's typically what you would argue on why the trademark is invalid. But you'd have to talk to an IP attorney really if you find yourself in that quagmire. Listicle triggers still behave the same, so I was happy to see that I could put in a query that I knew would pull just a gigantic list of listicles, and that still works. In this view, I like seeing the URLs, so I pulled them out of Quora. The keyword was sterling silver earrings, and by scanning the URLs, I can see that they're all largely category pages. So that all still behaves the same. And then Google, with BERT, they announced some examples in their announcement. And the one they did was the question, how old was Taylor Swift when Kanye jumped on the stage? And it pulled up the answer. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. It understood something like when Kanye jumped on the stage. That's amazing AI. So I was like, okay, let's do some similar ones. How old was John Lennon when the Vietnam War started? Fail. How old was Jackie Chan when he made his first movie? Fail. How old was Todd Hoffman when he left Gold Rush? Fail. So it kind of feels like a case of, a blind squirrel eventually finds a nut, but I bet it has a lot to do with their conditioned database of facts. And if they don't have conditioned answers to questions, they simply can't answer.
Is that an opportunity for us as SEOs now?
Potentially, if you know how to get your answers into Google's database, then you can maybe take over the answers to unanswered questions. So it is detectable, and if you have a method, you can see if your method works and gets you that answer. So, but the question is, do we have an efficient way of getting facts into Google's, conditioned database of facts?
Huh.
This is redacted. Very sorry, but I just wanted to show that the practice where you dominate all of page 1 and most of page 2 and most of page 3 still working. Worked 10 years ago, still works today. So yeah, a lot of the SEO stuff from past years, from say like 2007, still works today. So it doesn't look like very much has changed. It looks like they kind of dialed back the AI in the search results and put more AI into the query understanding. So they took entities and LSI-like things out of the match words, and they put more query comprehension into what you're typing in. But they changed almost nothing about evaluating the pages that show up. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, hearing your points of view and looking around last night after we talked about this on SEO this week, I'm pretty much in line with you now. Is the BERT is made the queries better in an attempt. When you say it's for money, I say it's to make the quality of the search. There's probably a little bit of both, or a lot of both actually. But the search quality is actually bringing up more targeted pages than it was before. But it didn't appear, and that's from looking back at Kyle's Lorem Ipsum tests and some other people that are running them. It didn't affect them whatsoever. So it wasn't. I think I'm right along the lines with you. Is that did not analyze the content on the page at all, and that's probably why. In our case, we didn't see a whole lot of traffic movement one way or another, because I've always been a one page, one keyword kind of guy. So that probably helped us out a lot.
Well, and I would
this, and I've seen the raw version of this, so I know where you're going with that, and it kind of reinforces that whole theory all along is BERT search query, not content.
Yep. Um, and yeah, seeing that Kyle's rhinoplasty plano re-experiments are still dominating is just more proof that the evaluation of content side of things hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
So that's all I had. Should we do some questions?
Let's see. If we only had a couple, Susie Bloomfield, she says SEO is dead again. Her state, it's probably more of a statement. If only 20% of SERP is SEO, let's face it, are we a dying industry? In short, SEO alone is dead.
I don't think so. I think that there's still tremendous opportunity in high cost per click keywords. There's tremendous opportunity whenever you're selling products within specific consumer categories. Free traffic is always going to have value. It's not what it used to be. That's the disheartening part. It used to be awesome. Like we used to be at the top of page one with no ads above us, and that was the golden era of search. And I just totally wish that Bing would take the fight seriously. If Bing would just care more about competing, I'd be happy to switch over and give them market share and tell my parents and grandparents to use Bing because it helps my business and it's, less ads, but their search is terrible. They don't let you do 100 results per page, which you need to do market research. When you paginate to page two, there's overlap in the results between page one and page two. They seem to be copying a lot of Google's moves, and I think they should really reject Google's culture of penalties, which would make it really easy for early adopters and evangelists to hop on board. But they're just not doing it. There's rumors that Ahrefs is developing a search engine. Hopefully, they take it seriously. Because what a lot of people don't realize is you don't have to win over the majority of the search market to turn the tides on Google. You just have to get near 50%. Because at near 50%, evangelists matter. Like we all have a say in who wins the battle. And Google, in the United States had a high point of about 35%. So another 10% of market share for Bing would have really changed the whole landscape. Because then all of a sudden, as SEOs, if it's 50-50, well, now all of a sudden, we all have to treat Bing as equal to Google. It's equally important to our business as Google. But that doesn't mean you need 75%. If you got 43%, a lot of people are going to start calling equivalency between the search engines. And so that's what Google needs to encounter to have a serious competitor. And I'm not seeing the seriousness out of Microsoft, and I hope they change that.
I think they use Bing to pay their bills and everything else is profit.
Yeah.
Lee Harden had a question. Ted, most real estate and automotive category list pages are search results. Why do you consider feeding search to Google Black Hat?
Because for the past 15 years, every black hat usually starts their career by taking Google search results as content and feeding it back to Google to see what Google does. And when you look at all of the big SEO exploits that were in rehab and pharmaceuticals and stuff of that nature, is all about making massive databases of content that could be searched by keyword and then surfacing those search results into Google in order to get very wide keyword nets with a page or two of PHP. those are the black hat techniques. And there are similar things that aren't black hat, but it's basically the same thing.
Cool. And let's see. The biggest one was in reference to you're dominating the search. And you've talked about this before, but I'm kind of combining a couple questions. Are you using multiple domains, Web 2s, mix of both? Just use
Yeah,
one?
you have to use multiple domains. You almost always have to use your Web 2s and your social pages. And you have to consider image search. You have to consider local. You have to have your pay-per-click ads. You have to have your Google Merchant Center shopping feed. But if you start thinking in a multi-channel way, in a multi-property way, you can take more and more and more and more of page one. And that's what I did when I was in online retail. We would dominate thousands, many tens of thousands of keywords by taking all of page one and half of page two going into Black Friday. And so if you wonder what comes after getting number one on Google, well, there's this whole other level of SEO play, which is take the whole damn page. That's what comes after number one.
Okay, and it looks like the last question, way off topic, but it looks fun. So, if I'm able to use a bot that spoofs traffic from a high-ranking pages for my keyword, and then the bot clicks around, does the spoof refer help, or does Google only register actual clicks?
Well, Google is probably the world's utmost authority on understanding click fraud. And the reason being is they've probably invested many, many, many tens of millions of dollars in thwarting click fraud on their pay-per-click advertising platform. It would not surprise me at all to find out that Google is a paying customer to every proxy service in the world. It would not surprise me at all that they have bot detection and human being detection. It would not surprise me at all if Google is validating traffic, saying, I see click-through rate on the SERPs. Do we see traffic coming from Bing to this website through the Safe Browsing API in Chrome? If both of those are there, then maybe the traffic's real. And if they're not there, then maybe it's fake. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are things like that in play where Google is able to say traffic looks real or traffic looks fake. And most of the click-through rate bots I've ever seen and ever made have all failed miserably. There's only been recent research that looks compelling, and it's very qualified. There is a very specific way you have to do it to get click-through rate to work. And there are 100 different ways you could do click-through rate that fails. And so, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Let's see. And then one from Sam is I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm a year in and not seeing traffic, 200 so far in 1 year. I have 5K to invest. Should I focus on developing a physical product and run paid ads instead?
So you're a year in, that means you probably got 3 months out of any type of sandbox behavior. So you're just beginning to see the effects of your SEO at their full effect. So if you've been neglecting link building, that was probably a mistake because you would be reaping those rewards now had you been doing some of that. I always like to do multi-channel for startups, so I would not do SEO only as a startup. I would focus on social and pay-per-click. because SEO takes a long time to cultivate. And so you want to get revenue dollars in the door as quickly as possible. So you have to be multi-channel. What would you do with $5,000? I would utilize 1,000 of that for courses and learning the fundamentals of your channels that you plan to target. And then I would save the rest of it for budget on your campaigns. I think education is going to give you the best bang for the buck here since you're starting out.
And then a good one for maybe next week is, where do you see SEO in 2025?
That's a bit far off.
Yeah. I think it's hard for people to say, where do you see SEO like Q2 next year?
Well, just imagine when they finally figure out like smart glasses that don't suck. Some of the applications of those is we won't have monitors on desks because you can, virtually put any size screen monitor anywhere you want in the physical space you're looking at. So it could be at 2025, we don't have monitors on desks. So, things could change a lot. Now, will that happen? Will that be a flying car and we're still waiting for it? Probably. But it's hard to predict where technology goes.
Yeah, for sure. All right. That looks like that's it.
Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough, just looking at field observations from Google and seeing what looks interesting and kind of the state of the union. It's something that I like to do. I think it leads to finding great new things to test, and it validates our understanding of search and our role with Google. So definitely keep looking at search, and if you see cool things, share it. We like to know about cool field observations. And remember, go sign up for that free webinar.
Yeah, show that link one more time before we sign off. People don't miss it.
Where was that thing? Here it is.
Here we go.
So, if you want to learn about what Quora is and how it can help your SEO, it's totally free. And I'll give anybody who registers a redemption code to get a 2-week free trial so you can kick the tires on your keywords and your websites. And it should be cool.
Awesome.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Make sure you hit the thumbs up for us if you like this. If you don't, hit thumbs down. It's engagement either way. Appreciate you guys and gals, and have a good week.